We've been very clear and consistent with our position in relation to this. We've got a situation at the moment where Australians are paying more and more every time they go to the supermarket, and people know that when you hand over $100 at the supermarket now at the checkout, you're getting much less today than you were 12, 18 months ago. And one of the big reasons for that is that the government's renewables-only energy policy is contributing to an increase in costs. So farmers are paying more for their cold storage. We know that farmers are paying more for their fertiliser, which is energy intensive. We know that people right along the supply chain are paying more and more for their energy bills, and ultimately that's all passed on to consumers. So people are feeling it when they go to the supermarket, and that's all as a responsibility all as a direct response to the decisions made by the Albanese government. Mr Albanese promised to reduce power prices by $275. People know that that hasn't happened, and their power prices and their electricity prices, their grocery prices continue to go north. We have said that where there is market concentration and it's resulting in higher prices being paid by consumers, particularly when they go to a Coles or Woolies outlet, that is something that we should consider in detail. The US, Canada, the UK has divestiture powers, so it's not unreasonable for Australia to have a look at it. We know that Coles and Woolies now have their own development branches, property development branches, so we know that they're holding blocks of land to squeeze other competitors out of that marketplace, and to the extent that that is causing an upward pressure on prices and consumers are paying more and more for their groceries when they get to the checkout, of course it's something that we're looking at, and we've been very open and frank about that. Where there's a market concentration in a particular geographic location and that is resulting in an increase in prices at the checkout, we should be prepared to look at it. Instead, what we've got at the moment is a government with a predetermined outcome for a review conducted by Craig Emerson. You may as well have asked Wayne Swan to conduct the review. The review was written, the results were dictated by Jim Chalmers, and I think this is a Mickey Mouse review that's been conducted by a Labor mate with an outcome predetermined by the Treasurer. There's not going to be any price relief here for consumers because Mr Chalmers and Mr Albanese know that their policies have directly contributed to higher prices, not just when people are paying their mortgages. Interest rates have gone up on 12 occasions under this government. We know that the $275 power decrease is not eventuated, and we know that people are paying more for their insurance, more for petrol and more for every other cost of living item in your budget, and that's why families are really hurting. And I don't think that Australians can afford 3 more years of this Labor government.
Are you concerned lines on the big supermarkets could lead to higher prices at their checkout?
Well, look, there's nothing revolutionary in saying that they're going to increase fines, and if that's the best that the Labor Party's come up with, then frankly Australian consumers have got no hope of prices coming down. We support appropriate sanctions. We support appropriate outcomes where people aren't getting the best deal at the moment, but I don't think Australians are going to see any reduction in their prices at the checkout under what the Labor Party's proposed, and the recommendations that Mr Emerson's provided just aren't going to be the solution that consumers are looking for.
James Patterson said a targeted divestment power is necessary. The word necessary, is it necessary? Do you think that's a necessary part of any?
Well, again, we announced that Angus Taylor and David Littleproud, subcommittee of the Shadow Cabinet, are looking at this very issue at the moment for the reasons that I outlined earlier. If you've got concentration of market power, if you've got a situation where consumers are being ripped off, if you've got a situation where suppliers are being crunched, then we need to have a look at the appropriateness of the settings, and that's the course that we're on at the moment.
Mr Emerson said that divestiture would only lead to foreign ownership or greater concentration in regional areas. Would you still back it despite these concerns?
Well, Mr Emerson and the Treasurer are at odds with the Chair of the Australian Consumer Commission, Competition and Consumer Commission. That's the reality. The ACCC has pointed out that a divestiture power would be a handy tool in the toolbox. We're of the same view that it should be looked at, and if it's adequate, if it's appropriate, and if it's going to deliver cheaper prices for consumers, then we're very happy to consider it. But it's the case in the United Kingdom, in the United States, and other comparable markets that divestiture power exists, and so why would Australia not look at it? I think what we're talking about here at the moment is a political response from a political mate of the Labor Party, and I don't think anybody would be surprised about the fact that Mr Emerson's views line up with the instructions he was given by Mr Chalmers.